Welcome to IAYTD. Today we're talking about Thor Ragnarok. We're going to cover non-spoilers first. I'm going to talk about what worked, what didn't work, and then I'm going to give it a score. Then we're going to dive into spoiler territory for those of you that have seen Ragnarok. If you don't already know what Ragnarok is about, basically Thor, Loki, gets sent away from Asgard by the goddess Hela, who is the Asgardian goddess of death. And somehow they have to find their way back and stop the event known as Ragnarok from happening, which is basically the end of the world in Asgardian terms. In doing so, it's kind of this interstellar travel. The Hulk shows up, there's a couple other guest stars, and they end up having to stop Hela. That's kind of the arc of the movie. There was a lot of hype for Ragnarok, for me, for a couple big reasons. One, it's covering Planet Hulk, which is awesome. It's covering Ragnarok, the most crazy event in the Thor mythology, right? We've got like massive monsters, end of the world, the undead, it's all sorts of stuff. We've got huge new names. We've got Karl Urban, we've got Cate Blanchett, we've got Tessa Thompson, we've got Jeff Goldblum. There's all of these new actors and actresses here that really elevate this movie. So the hype was incredible. Does this movie meet the hype? Let's talk about what worked first. The biggest thing that people are going to talk about when they leave this movie is how funny it is. It is probably the funniest Marvel movie, maybe even funnier than Guardians of the Galaxy. They are up here, non-stop laughs. It's clever. The director brings a lot of his energy. There's a lot of comedy here. And this is unlike the other Thor films because Thor 1 and Thor 2 were serious. You know, there were funny moments, but it was never really Thor that was funny. It was like people observing Thor and saying like, that's crazy what that guy's doing. It was never really them. Where in this movie, Thor is hilarious, Loki's hilarious, there are jokes between them. There's a lot of comedy here, and it mostly works. I also want to commend the new talent here. Jeff Goldblum, awesome. The director, Taika Waititi, is also voices a character called Korg, which was not really shown in the trailers unless you started watching some of those clips. But he plays this alien called a Cronin, and he is hilarious. And a lot of these new characters bring some really great humor to it. On the downside about that, though, is that the comedy feels so overwhelming that it's hard to adjust to some of the more serious moments that happen. There are some characters that die. There's really intense, it's supposed to be the end of the world. But it's hard to take seriously with that gravity when you're kind of laughing and there's jokes. And even in some of those sequences, there are punchlines that take away from any sort of weight that those events had, at least for me. So when someone would die, I didn't really feel a whole lot because there was a joke, and it was quick. So the downside of it being a comedy, but at least this movie found an identity, which the other two Thor movies felt. Out of all of the MCU, the Thor movies were probably my least favorite. That they felt kind of generic. They didn't really have a place. Where here, Thor now has a identity, very much so. It's different than the other two movies, but at least he has one. So I'm okay with this kind of pivot of genre because I think it benefits Thor. The action sequences, great. The movie opens with a scene that I think is really cool. There's a lot of big fight scenes and there's a lot of action that really works. I also want to say that the movie is colorful and vibrant, and the aesthetic is very much Guardians of the Galaxy, where there are alien races that have their own personalities and identities, and you get all of that just from the setting, the costumes. The world tells you a lot without kind of hitting you over the head with exposition. So I appreciated that a lot. So now let's talk about what didn't work. Like I said before, the tone didn't always work. That there were moments that I wanted to feel it, and I didn't. I think the movie was funny, the action was great, but it didn't have the emotional weight that some of these moments deserved. And while Cate Blanchett was trying, I don't think Hela was realized as much as she could have been. That she didn't get a lot to do because so much of the story takes place away from Asgard. They didn't really give her a lot, and when she was there, it was very over the top, like, I will destroy everything. And we've seen that. She felt almost like Ultron to me, where she was also cracking jokes. They were trying to make her out to be this threat. And I didn't feel it. Not because of Cate Blanchett, but because the writing didn't give her a lot to do. I still don't really quite understand the motivation for some of the things she does. Just overall, not a stellar villain, but that's okay. So overall, Thor Ragnarok is hilarious. It's action-packed. It's a fun adventure. It gets Thor right. It introduces some new characters. It does a lot, and most of it works. So for that reason, I'm going to give Thor Ragnarok a 4 out of 5. And 4 out of 5 means it's good. This is a good movie. I give very few 5s, and so those of you that love the movie, I agree with you. I loved it. But it's not going to be in the top of how I rank the MCU movies. I see a lot of people saying, like, this is the best MCU movie. I don't think so. I think there has been probably 5 or 6 movies that I would put above this. And maybe that's a topic for another day. But I loved it. I would encourage most of you to see it. You'll like it. Unless you really want to relish in that Ragnarok, end of the world drama, this movie doesn't really do a lot of that. So that is it for non-spoilers. So at this point, I'm going to put the spoiler warning up, and we're going to get into what really happened and what some of those moments were. Okay, so I was vague earlier, but when I say some moments didn't hit for me, there are characters that in the first 2 movies, we were like, you need to care about, Sif and the Warriors 3. Okay? In this movie, 2 of the Warriors 3 are killed instantly. They bring in the actors, and for a second, they're like, hey, and then they get killed. The 3rd one dies shortly after. Sif, nowhere to be seen. Not even a reference as to where she is. So these characters just killed. No weight to it at all. I didn't feel anything. Even Odin, I don't understand why he died. Did he give up? Was he killed? If he knew that Hela was going to escape, why would he choose? I just kind of got lost up in like, why is this happening? And then when he finally died and turned into space glitter, I didn't feel anything. And I should have felt something for Odin because he is a character that's been around since the beginning. I didn't feel anything. I felt more when Thor's mother died in the Dark World. That moment, Loki's death in that movie, even though we knew it probably wasn't true, I felt more in the Dark World than I felt here. I also talked earlier a lot about how the comedy overwhelmed some of the more intense moments. In the end, we get, there's Fenris running around. We've got Surtur is here. I never felt like anyone was really in danger. I didn't really feel like, it didn't feel like the epic Ragnarok that we wanted. Because really Ragnarok was just Surtur killing the people, destroying the town. And really there were no people. All the people escaped. So it was just him kind of destroying some scenery. It didn't feel as epic as this movie could have felt. But I feel like I'm being really negative because I really liked the movie. The humor always landed. Jeff Goldblum is hilarious in the way that he delivers, and even moments when he just stops talking and what he says with his eyes, and hilarious. Korg stole the show. Him and his little buddy, he's like, oh, he's dead. Oh, he's not dead. Like, hilarious stuff. Just, the movie was entirely funny, and I loved it because it gave Thor something. Because if the movie was all serious and really was about Ragnarok, I don't know how many people would have been on board, where at least this movie gave it something. That's a debate. If it were to go one of the 2 ways, which way was more successful. And I think they will be successful with this route because people will go and they'll laugh and they'll tell people it's a hilarious movie. Where if it was serious, I don't know if it would get that sort of attention from fans because it would feel like another Thor movie. Other things to talk about. Loki obviously has the cube. In the end credit scene, we see that giant ship approach them. It's for sure Thanos. and Loki will probably give Thanos the cube, which was kind of why the whole movie, The Avengers, happened. So that'll probably happen. I can't think of anything else that's really spoilery. So I think we're going to end it there. But feel free down in the comments to tell me your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. Let's have an interesting dialogue down there. And I hope you enjoyed Thor Ragnarok. And we'll see you next time.